Mr. Wilson. I don't have to take that kind of talk from anyone.
That's right, you don't. How about going outside and trying to kick me around?
I'm not supposed to fight with the guests, Mr. Wilson.
I'm not a guest tonight, you yellow bastard. I happen to be an intruder.
Hello and welcome to The Good, the Pod, and the Ugly, a film podcast where we talk essential filmographies of notable directors or actors per season, along with a number of specials, often with guests. I am your co-host, Ken.
Are we going slow? And I am your other co-host, Thomas.
You may also know us from our other podcast, Raising Roscoe, a day in, day out in the life of raising a young dog.
He's not in here in the studio with me today.
Okay, damn it.
Yeah, you were hoping that he would hear his name, didn't you?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, so what we do is we pair two films per episode, and we do a deep dive into their backgrounds, and then we talk about them. So, Ken, who are we talking about this season, and what films we'll be watching this week?
That is a great question, Thomas. We are doing our Darren Aronofsky season, which you have wanted to do for a while. It's season 11. We're doing the temporal pincer movement that we did with Clint Eastwood, where we're starting with the latest and the earliest, and then we're moving inward on his filmography. So this first episode, we are pairing his first film, Pi, with his latest film, which is The Whale.
And we have in the studio today, Ryan.
Who did our great new theme song.
Hello. Hello,
Hey,
boys.
Ryan,
Thank
how are
you.
you?
Yeah.
Welcome back.
I shouldn't have to provide my own fanfare. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll work on that in the editing. We'll just add some fanfare.
Yeah, so there could be a few different things that are maybe a little bit different than the previous 10 seasons. It's hard to say that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have a new editor. It's going to be a little easier to listen to the films that you want to listen to by splitting them up. So instead of doing both films in a single episode, we're going to release one episode per film. But everybody likes, paying for a la carte your luggage when you go on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
You can just pick and choose what you want to listen to.
Yeah, we are thematically linking the two films and then talking about them on separate episodes.
Yeah, so Aronofsky, I've been wanting to do this for so long. Quick bio, and then let's talk about our experiences. Aronofsky, he was born in Brooklyn, New York, at February 12th, 1969. Studied at Harvard as undergrad for both film and social anthropology, and then would later go on to the AFI Conservatory, where he was classmates with Todd Field.
Oh,
really?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where he got his MFA.
From Todd Field?
Yes, Todd Field gave him 3 letters. It was his motherfucking award. Aronofsky, the other part of this reason that we're splitting things up this season is that it's a pretty short filmography. We're talking 8 films total. So basically, if we look at it, out of those 8 films, 5 actors of Aronofsky's have received Oscar nominations for Best Performance, and 2 have won.
Yep.
But he himself has not been nominated for an Academy Award.
Which is curious, given the amount of accolades his actors generally receive in his movies.
Yeah. And the only other thing I think is important to mention, because we'll eventually be talking The Fountain and Noah, and I guess maybe with Pi a little bit, and even The Well, because religion is interestingly something that, to my mind, he's somebody who talks about obsession. Like, he's focused on obsessions, and a little bit like Michael Mann in a way, but he also is somebody very interested in religion, despite himself not necessarily being a practitioner of any organized religion. He, like Clint Eastwood, is into TM. And David Lynch, I guess.
I didn't know
really?
Eastwood was into TM.
I did not either.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, they're both big trans meditators.
Transcendental meditation.
Well, no wonder he's to take Clint. Everything makes a lot more sense now. Huh. He's not just lazy. He has a religious justification for his laziness.
So, Ryan, Aronofsky, thank you for joining us for the first 2 episodes.
Darren.
Have you have you seen all of his films? Pretty easy to do. There's 8 of them.
I have seen all but The Whale, which I have only seen part of, and we will discuss that soon, I guess.
Did we watch Noah in the theaters together? I can't remember if that...
I don't think so. I don't think I saw
Okay.
Noah until home video,
Okay.
which was a mistake on my part, to be honest, but there it is.
Ken?
Aronofsky in 98 when Pi came out, I still am, I guess, was a film nerd. So I went out and saw it in theaters. Was immediately excited about whatever he did next. And was their opening weekend for Requiem for a Dream a few years later.
I remember the Peter Travers Rolling Stone review of Pi. I believe it played at Sundance. So I'm not sure when the movie came out that year, but I remember reading a review months before it was in Phoenix and just being so pumped to see it.
And I have followed Aronofsky since. I haven't been like a total fanboy where I go and see something like Noah, which I still haven't seen. And then we'll talk about it in the next episode about The Whale, where I didn't watch it until we were doing this podcast. I think, well, we will talk about it more. The Wrestler and Black Swan almost being the exact same movie kind of turned me off of him for a little bit. But I'm back on board.
All right.
And you're a big fan, Thomas.
Well, I think that so I'm a big fan of awesome movies and terrible movies. Actually, something we set up last season is Film Flicker Movie with, I think, guest Eric. And I think that he has nothing but films. Maybe Noah is a movie. I have to go back and think about it a little bit. But so when I say a movie, just to disambiguate, like really, I think that most of his films are most of his movies are films. And I didn't catch Pi until it was released on DVD. I didn't catch Requiem in the theaters. I was doing a bunch of college at the time. And but then I saw both of those. I saw Pi before Requiem. I saw it like as soon as it was released on DVD. But I was so stoked from those two films to go watch The Fountain. And so I love awesome films and I love terrible movies. And I think that Aronofsky has both of those in his Ove.
I can't wait till we talk The Fountain, because I had probably the same experience of just being totally jacked to go see it.
Well, cool. So yeah, this pairing for these 2 episodes is going to be The Pi and the Well, as Ken mentioned. Both of these films have a few things in common.
Yes.
So both films have a professor as a character who makes an appearance. Both of them have a friend who brings food. Both of them have a protagonist who are agoraphobes. Both have a protagonist who takes pills. One advertently, one inadvertently. Both have a protagonist who makes friends with a religious evangelist. Both have protagonists with computer remote jobs. And they destroy their computer. Both have protagonists who have health conditions. Maybe caused by their quest. And both protagonists succumb to that health problem, perhaps achieving or giving up on their goal.
Well done.
And they have the same ending. And they have the same ending as The Wrestler.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A couple of his other movies. I was gonna, I don't know if this is a good time, Thomas, but you can tell me when you want to get into it. I think his movies are about religion and obsession as the secondary topic. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, let's circle. So you think there's a primary and this is a secondary or tertiary?
That's a chicken and the egg conversation with Aronofsky, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, shit, let's do it. Pi, 1998. Movies that we've covered from 1998 include Ronin, City of Angels,
Worst movie ever
Snake
made.
Eyes, and I don't know if we covered Saving Private Ryan or not during.
We did not.
Yeah, so take that off the list. Yeah, it's to give a sense of context. It's the year 1998 is the year between Gummo and Julian Donkey Boy. We're talking Harmony Korine, which I think helps because you get the the harness cam, right? In Julian Donkey Boy.
And they both feel like they're of an era that maybe has passed.
Very much so, yeah.
And
An Oliver Stone infused era of auteurism.
Okay.
yeah, Oliver Stone was so big. And giving you no world context except for maybe what Hollywood was producing at the time. For Eastwood, it was between Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil and True Crime.
Not my favorite Eastwood era.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you saw this in the theaters, Ken. Was it wide? It wasn't wide released, as far as I know. It was like one screen at in a Portland theater or Ashland, or where were you?
It would have been in Portland, and yeah, they had all the. I may have seen it at Cinema 21. Come to think of it,
and when you saw it,
Cinema 21, it was just one screen.
This movie is very divisive. Did you like the CGI tiger on the raft or not?
It was very realistic. Yeah,
I have my spouse to thank for that joke.
I loved it when I first saw it because that was an era where you would have these young filmmakers and they would have these debuts and they'd premiere at Sundance and there'd be this buzz about them and you'd go see them and you'd be legitimately excited for what they're going to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they would get to make their own movie next. Nowadays, it feels like these types of movies are just simply calling cards that allow Disney to poach the director to make something faceless and soulless. So this was an exciting time to be a film nerd because these types of debuts really led to something, whereas now I don't think as much.
Yeah, I think there's like two sections to the 90s and they all get lumped in my head. But I always think when I think of Aronofsky, I also think of like Robert Rodriguez, and other guerrilla filmmakers of the time. And really, I think that there's probably an earlier side to that with like Sex, Lies, and Videotapes. And
Tarantino, Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I think Kevin Smith might be on the second half of that with Clerks.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get kind of jumbled in my head as all being of a part or of a piece.
Yeah,
but yeah,
a lot of those guys have had careers where they aren't tied to like IP and big studio films, for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder because one of the reasons I'm gonna just I know we usually wait to reactions until after we've talked about the plot, but I really like this film, and I think it's really I'm the audience for it because I really like Primer as well. And that might be to your point, Ken. I think Primer is like 2004. Shane Carruth hasn't really been able to make anything other than Upstream Color since.
Yeah, well, he kind of got canceled too.
Yeah, he was making it would have been fascinating considering the pandemic and everything that's happened since. But after Primer, he was working on a Michael Mann style international intrigue thriller about the shipping industry, about shipping lines, and he could never get the financing to get it filmed. But I bet it's amazing.
We'll never know.
But so Aronofsky, he took $100 donations from people to be able to finance this film and paid them back at $150. I mean, it's such a great. I mean, it's a little bit like the Coen brothers and other people who started off just crowdsourcing their films, which we didn't call it at the time, right?
No.
And we weren't using it to pay medical bills. Yeah, and it's a little bit like that Clerks scenario where it shot on 16 and then blew it up, and most of the money was just on doing that transfer. It's total guerrilla filmmaking. They had people stationed out watching for police because they didn't have any permits.
Oh wow!
They were shooting on the MTA and other things. There was one time, there's a story that Aronofsky tells on the DVD commentary where it's the brain scene where the brain gets stabbed on the steps. Apparently a cop came down, a police officer, he keeps calling him New York's finest. I don't know if he does that tongue in cheek or not, but that's how he refers to every person in blue. So New York's finest comes down. They like quickly cover things up. They totally got caught because when they leave, she like looks at the brain, gives it a few moments and then leaves. And he's like, how the hell, like, why is nothing being done? Because it's a real brain. It's a human brain or a cow brain or something, right?
Mhm.
And he goes back up, and there was somebody waiting in the car up top hours later, and they were shooting at night, and said, oh, Woody Allen shooting a film across the street in the park. They must have just thought it was Woody Allen's like second unit, because Woody Allen had a permit for that. So, yeah, I love guerrilla
Amazing.
filmmaking, and it's amazing what this film's able to achieve with the budget that it has.
I wonder what the Woody Allen movie was.
Oh, yeah. I don't
right.
know Woody Allen's filmography full enough to be able to pun and a pie joke.
Shoot, what was that? Oh, he did one with Larry David where he was like in OCD counting steps. Anyway, we're talking about Pi, not Larry David.
A film that is 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 45 seconds long.
Do we want to do a synopsis for this?
Yeah, do you have a 60-second one prepped? Oh, that's great. It's like we came prepared today.
I had my wife time it, and it was 40 seconds, so I added an aside. So it may stretch beyond 60 seconds at this point. whenever you're ready.
Oh, I have to get my chronometer going. And oh, wait, no. That's go.
A super anxious math genius who you'll swear is the lead singer of Live once he shaves his head is, pause, pop pills, take note, on the verge of either a breakthrough or a breakdown. Getting pressure from both, pause, take pills, take note, Wall Street to game the system with a new super chip, and a Hasidic Jew looking for mathematical meaning in the Torah and in the universe, played by Ben Shankman of Angels in America fame, where he, playing a gay man, and the play spent an inordinate amount of time on a confused young Mormon, which may come up when we talk about The Whale. Pause, take pills, see wild and crazy stuff that may not be real, make note. Is it a gift from God or a curse? Can math figure out why humans are so messed up? He feels he's on the verge. Have you ever had a teacher that worked hard to drill the lesson into you? Well, Pi ends with the opposite.
Oh, all the pretty leaves. You were still 10 seconds short, but
fuck yeah, that's even better. Just
Great
like
job.
this film is under 90 minutes. So
well done.
We should also note that Clint Mansell of Pop Lead Itself did the score and would score most of Aronofsky's subsequent film, along with Matthew, I hope I pronounce this right, Libatique, who did the amazing cinematography on 16 millimeter for this film and has shot 6 of his 7 subsequent films, I believe. It may be 5. Great collaborators he had from the start that seem to have followed him around, which is always a good sign.
Mansell does a cameo. He's the guy that Max, our protagonist, chases, who had the camera.
So they were friends.
Oh yeah, no, they totally were. Yeah, it felt like anybody in Aronofsky's orbit just got kind of brought in as needed to help finish this film.
And then he's kept him around.
Yeah,
that's great. Other than the females in his movies, which he that's we'll talk about that when we get to it, I guess.
Who he occasionally dates for a while
and has children with, perhaps. Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about his scarves. I don't know if he had enough money back in the late 90s to wear scarves, but when he sold this film, I imagine that's the first thing he did with his money.
I heard scars, and then I was like, oh, maybe that's why he wears those scarves. Who knows? I mean, we'll find out. When we pay for that cameo striptease.
I don't know how this film has aged for me, because when I watch it now, it just seems so much like a vision board of Aronofsky's subsequent career. It's almost funny, not in a way that the movie is bad funny, but just how fully formed so many of his obsessions were from the very start, and how I just watched The Whale, and so many of them are still present.
I feel like you couldn't, if an artist planned out like a first film that would like sort of sketch the path for the rest of their career intentionally, it wouldn't work out as well as Pi. Pi is just everything. He's taken he's gone so many different directions away from this film, but he is always so close to it. It's really incredible in a way.
I don't know. I mean, technically, he does a lot of different things with his films. What he calls or coined the hip hop montage, which Ken alluded to in a synopsis, right? Pause, take notes, pills. Is shows up again in Requiem, but then pretty much disappears. I mean, like the Fountain, when the idea behind it was supposed to be practical effects, right? And then he does Noah, which he gets an award from an animal rights group for not using using nothing but CGI animals, right? So, yeah, I'm curious, because I mean, Thief has a lot of Michael Mann's theory. Like, you can see a germ of a lot of Michael Mann stuff in there for the rest of his career. I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more, Ryan, and maybe, I mean, the film's tagline, Pi. I've owned the DVD since '98 and didn't notice it until the other day. It's faith in chaos, which is ambiguous because there's two different ways of reading that, right? Do you have faith that chaos is like a good deterministic thing, or is your faith in chaos? Discuss.
Discuss.
Well,
I thought the original tagline on the poster was "You can't slice this up."
I don't really. There was a lot there, Thomas.
Okay. I think that was my way of trying to hand the baton to you to talk about religion being a secondary.
Oh, yes.
Focus.
I mean, I think I'm hard pressed now to think of a movie of his that isn't essentially about humans finding their place in existence. What does it all mean and why am I here is, like, to me, the central theme that comes through his work. And it's true that oftentimes his main characters become obsessed with finding the answer to that question, but he always seems to be driving at that sort of essential question. And I think that's ultimately what Max is looking for here with his very postmodern theory that all of human behavior can be explained and predicted by mathematics, you know?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's also why I think that he hasn't really made a movie. He just makes films, is because he does try and tackle that larger existential question in everything that he does. But also, I think what's fascinating is that he doesn't have the template for it. Like, he doesn't, I guess he's empathetic to the existential drive of each of his characters and their obsessions. So that that's what drives the movie, as opposed to, I don't know, the Omega Code that came out 2 years after this film, the Christian movie that tells you that the Bible code's real, and if you read the Torah in a certain way, it has all the prophecies from Revelations. He doesn't, like, as we'll talk about maybe with the well as well, like, he's not dogmatic, or he doesn't necessarily know. It doesn't seem like he knows or is driven towards a specific answer, despite.
Oh, interesting. I think
you think he is.
I think he's extraordinarily dogmatic, and I think he is often driven towards the same answer. I mean, I don't know what this man believes, but all of his movies that tackle, established religion, it is a dogmatic analysis of that religion. In this movie, we're looking at the Kabbalah and what that means. Noah is about a very literal reading, not only of the Bible, but of other flood myths. I mean, he wants to explore what the words mean, and maybe even in the words of Max from Pi, the syntax. What is the Bible saying in between the letters?
Huh. Well, I think maybe I don't see how we're saying anything different, Ryan. It seems like if he's doing that for every religion, then he's treating all religions the same.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely get into it. I think that I would argue that he is the most Christian filmmaker in commercial cinema right now. He seems, for being a Jew, he is obsessed with the Messiah. He's obsessed with martyrdom. He's obsessed with heaven. These are all, and maybe that as a Jew living in a Gentile society, maybe that's like a critical look at these things. But they pop up again and again and again and again, you know.
Well, I mean, the old trope was what, that like in the 40s, that Jews would go to Hollywood to write stories about Catholic priests for a Protestant audience.
Yeah. That's
So I guess I might be I probably am projecting, but it's just as easy to see him as somebody who is an agnostic or non-believer, but nevertheless finds faith and our, as a species, relationship with it, one of the driving forces of either the chaos that will engender our end times, or just one of the fundamental things that we humans do is search for meaning where there may not be any.
Fuck! God damn it, Ken. We don't have a podcast where we agree on everything.
I qualified it there. No, I just think
I'm here. That's why you invited me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm a big fan of like Nick Cave, who's very ambivalent towards religion, but also it imbues all of his work as well.
But Nick, until very recently, and his conversion, Nick Cave. How many Darren Aronofsky movies end with the main character going to heaven? You know, like there's
they
maybe
die,
none of them.
They die, so there's a chance.
I mean, I think the White Light that ends this, and the Whale, and I believe the Wrestler is heaven. I think that's where they're going.
But he doesn't die. What? But Max doesn't die in this.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, okay, cool. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, there's a mention of ambiguity. I'm taking this from, and I'm going to quote her later, Tarja Lane's "Bodies in Pain: Emotions in the Cinema of Darren Aronofsky," 2015. So there's because there's a certain ambiguity in Pi. There's a question of what when he has his visions, what does he see is actually real and not real? Like the mustacheless man on the subway train, is we see him twice, right? But he can't be real both times.
Right.
Okay.
Why not?
So why not? It'd be very strange. I don't think he's working for the corporation. He starts singing the first time. It seems like somebody it seems a very odd coincidence.
How much time have you spent in New York City, though?
I don't know. I guess all total, less than a month.
This is okay. I mean, I know I'm not at all challenging your premise that this is a very unreliable narrative.
Well, I'm sorry, how many times do you think you find a brain on the subway and then you poke it?
Well, I believe
he does have dream sequences.
Yes, and I believe that there is an edit, and that they are editing clues about what's real and what's not, and the brain scenes to me are very clearly not happening. But a lot of the other stuff is edited differently, and is more ambiguous. I don't know if it's happening or not, but the brain stuff, anytime he has like one of these crazy ass visions, it cuts from him being like, he touches the brain and then it cuts and he wakes up somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always happen with his vision. So I don't know if the other things are happening or not. I just think it's more ambiguous than some of his very, the things that are obviously not happening.
So all said, we both agree that there's dream sequences in this film.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So the end, when he smashes Euclid, his computer, he starts to have a dream he starts to have his migraine, which then leads to what we would say is a dream sequence. So there's a question of, first, does he actually drill his head? Okay. And then second, does he die, which I've never, in watching this film, think that he ever died. I think he visited another plane, perhaps, or he saw the universe as it maybe truly is. But I don't think he ever dies, because the end of the film is him with the little girl from the opening.
So this, I hadn't seen this movie in 25 years, I don't think, but this time I thought it was, so I saw it kind of again with fresh eyes as far as what's happening. I think he has the same stroke that kills his professor. And I think that he is dead at the end of the film, and he's in heaven. And in heaven, he is not concerned with the meaning of things. He can enjoy the beauty of life at face value. And that's why he doesn't.
I took everything as literal. I mean, back in the late '90s, I remember I did a lot of research on trepanation. You know, where you
Uh-huh.
drill a hole in your head and then
Yeah,
you
you have
have
the
Wow.
to.
scars. I've seen the scars, dude.
No, I did it for a screenplay I was writing,
I
and
didn't
then
know
after
this
I
was a
saw
thing.
this, I gave it up because Aronofsky already did it. So that is what I took the ending to be, where he trepanated his skull to expose his brain and let the air out, so to speak, and everything that was driving him crazy was gone. His math, whatever was in there, was gone. And I really love the simpleness of the little girl and the calculator bugging him, asking him questions in the beginning, and
Mhm.
then it paying off at the end. That's like really good commercial structural writing. And a lot of this, as strange as it gets in the visions, it is fairly well structured as a regular 3-act movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that part of it buried within the strong visuals, the editing, and how weird it gets. But underneath, there's a really good structure and bones beneath all the stuff he puts on top of it, I think.
It's so, particularly for being so low budget, it's so controlled. I mean, it's so, it's so dense. The script and the cinematography and the editing work so well together for a
And
first
the
film.
score.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking, Ken, you might remember better than me, but I feel like this was the first movie with a nonstop electronic soundtrack. Like the first, we got Run Lola Run and that sort of thing afterwards, but I feel like this is the first time that techno was in the movie. Techno was part of the movie. It was like, it's a nonstop audiovisual narrative.
It is, well, I think how well it is married to the material, because there is a real archaic look to the movie with the how they shot it on the Super 16. But the score always reminds you that it's not. I love Mansell's score. I don't like the credits, honestly, but the rest of his score, it really propels the movie. The movie goes by pretty quick, and a lot of that is probably due to that.
Yeah.
If it had been a standard score with spot sequences with music, I don't know if it would have the propulsive feel that the movie has.
Yeah, I think there's something fascinating about the film because I always forget how the last act occurs, and it almost doesn't matter, right? Like the movie feels like it is on speed
Mhm.
Yeah.
without, but while still having like quiet scenes of Go playing, of having to borrow the iodine. Like it's not a nonstop like Crank or something, right?
Mhm.
There's quiet moments in it, but there's something about the score and the editing that just as I try and like think back, like okay, so how did he actually get to the point of drilling his head? It all seems natural because it's such a propulsive force from pretty much the opening with the narrative of just
Mhm.
he's staring into the sun and then his premises
Mhm.
of there's a pattern there. Like it's just like this recurring motif throughout that just keeps repeating and getting faster and faster until we have him destroying Euclid and whatever happens at the end. Either he goes to heaven, which I've never had as a interpretation, or that he drills himself and he loses the ability to do math anymore, which could be a happy ending or a sad ending.
Depending how you feel on math, I guess.
That's, yeah. Um, I don't know if this is too sensitive or personal of a topic to dip into, but I recently have found out that I have ADHD and certain sensory issues resulting from that. I get hyper obsessed with. In my case, it is sound. But looking back at this movie, it nails so many of the psychological effects of that I've unknowingly been dealing with kind of my whole life. The right after you are introduced to him, right, and we do the narration and the statement of premises. He meets 4 people and has 4 different conversations in the first 8 minutes of the movie. All of them are like distracting and kind of annoying. He walks through the crowds of Manhattan and everything sped up, and the sound of the crowd is like a high-pitched jumble of voices that are annoying and don't make any sense. That's how I feel in a crowd. And then the deep focus that he gets on his math, and the way he follows that until he gets a migraine, and then he has a blackout and this moment of peace, and then he has to recover, and then he goes down this obsessive path all over again. That is all, those are all compulsive behaviors of certain types of ADHD and autism. And so, like I said, not having seen this movie in 25 years, it was kind of a revelation to see a more extreme version of myself in Max. And I don't know if it's tied, but the way the music is used, the type of music that Manzel's making here is very influential on the sound of the stuff I make. I love black and white cinema. I can't help but think that maybe that goes back to this movie. Yeah, the editing, like everything about it is like, seeing this again was like, oh, so many things that really are important to me, I probably first experienced here. It was a little bit wild.
So you're saying
this is very formative for you then.
1.5 stars? Kind of mid.
Yes, definitely a 1-star film.
Yeah, the only thing I think I can really ping it for, because I love the black and white, and my head just kind of explodes every time in a positive way of just like, oh man, I love this so much. Like I wish I could somehow consume this and just keep it with me at all times. Is whenever they're talking about the spirals and the patterns in the universe, whether at the deli or the coffee counter, and Lenny Meyer, played by Ben Shinkman, drops the cream into the coffee, and you see the fractal spiral. I fucking love that. Like that is, and then it goes into the smoke, to dissolve into the smoke, and so you could visually see the math that he's seeing without like some bullshit beautiful mind, like, or Sherlock CGI mapped over the screen.
Yeah. The same with the leaves too. You know, it's such a perfect, beautiful distillation of the concepts he is working with.
And while I was joking about the Bible code, I mean, that came out around the same year. I guess the germ of the math part of it was Aronofsky. He went to a kibbutz, I guess sometime in his later, like after high school, is what I'm assuming. And he thought it was going to be like this nice farm, like living back on the land and maybe doing like some work in the fields. It was a plastics factory. The kibbutz.
Wow.
He was working on an assembly line. He was like, fuck this. And he went to Jerusalem and he met a bunch of Hasidic Jews who were talking to him about codes in the Torah. And so he was like, and he just kind of like filed that away, which is really like, it seems like it's right on that precipice, precursor to Madonna getting into Kabbalah and all these other, and like I said, the Bible code, all these other numerological moments. And it was just part of the zeitgeist that he, I think, felt like he grabbed a hold of just ahead of the curve, and somehow, like, unfortunately wasn't able to make a more widely distributed film.
Yeah, I to that point, I think let's see. So when this came out, I was studying postmodernism at PSU and taking classes in both lit and film about this, and that was so I can't separate my own studies from what was going on in the culture, but this idea that human behavior was perhaps predestined, and you could figure out your predetermined place in life if you just studied religion or philosophy or science closely enough. I felt like that was definitely something that spread all throughout the culture around this time and afterward.
The only thing I think I could ping the film for is that sometimes Sean Gullett's acting isn't the best.
Oh, really?
I don't. Yeah, sometimes like. But I mean, especially
his voiceovers really sound like Edward Norton. It was weird.
Mark Margolis is great to see because I didn't really. I see him everywhere now.
Ding, ding,
I
ding.
then started seeing him as Hector after seeing him as Hector in Breaking Bad, and he's
Ding, ding, ding.
everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And this was kind of he kind of got his start with Aronofsky, didn't he? I was looking at his filmography, and
Isn't he in a
before
bunch of
Pi,
Cronenberg stuff?
He's great though, and it's weird that if you watched Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, made almost 25 years later, he looked exactly the same. He
Yeah.
passed away last year.
Yeah, I definitely saw him in a Chuck Norris movie.
I think he was born looking like that. Anyway, every time he was on, I just hear the ding of the little bell on the wheelchair from Breaking Bad.
Yeah. The only thing that I bump on with this movie, Thomas, and I think it's like the biggest strength and weakness of Aronofsky as a filmmaker is what you were saying about he makes films, capital F. He has that. I mentioned Oliver Stone earlier because the first time I ever heard this distinction was Tarantino, the film movie distinction. Tarantino was talking to Stone after Stone bought the Natural Born Killers script, and Stone gave him a backhanded compliment saying that True Romance was a great movie, but he didn't need Tarantino's help with Natural Born Killers because Stone only makes films, and in order to make NBK a Stone-worthy property, it had to be turned into a film, and Tarantino knew nothing about filmmaking. But
who's laughing now?
Yeah. Aronofsky does have that big masculine auteurist energy where he's gonna make a statement every time, even if he's got to beat you to death to get it across. And mostly it works, but sometimes it really doesn't for me.
But I also don't know if he actually makes a statement. I guess that's maybe where we have some daylight between us, because I think that he has, like, I don't know if there's really a statement in Pi as far as, oh, don't get obsessed, or there's a secret code in the Torah, or
I mean,
you could predict the stock market. I think that these are all like a confluence of ideas that somehow allow. I think that one of the interesting things that makes it a little messy and great is the ants, which is something he introduced pretty late into the development of the script. He was in Mexico and he saw these giant, or somewhere in Central America, and saw these giant ant hills. And he was like, I have to put ants in Pi. For the, and it makes sense because it's like this weird organic thing that happens. It becomes like a little bit like a Cronenberg film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a couple things, Thomas, but I mean, I think the movie has a very clear thing that we have a protagonist who is obsessed with finding meaning in the universe. He finds it and then chooses, regardless of whether he dies at the end, he chooses to have a life of pure experience, with no knowledge of the meaning of anything, you know, and he's happy at the end. He chooses to put his obsession away, and whether he's alive or dead, he can finally enjoy life for the first time. That's what I took away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something where obsession means discomfort and means a certain amount of pain. And I think the question's like, what do you do if you don't have that? And that might be throughout all of his films.
Yeah,
is the obsession okay? Is the obsession okay for the individual? Is it okay for society? Is it okay for us as the viewer?
Yeah, I guess we just do have daylight here because I think he's very clearly stating, you know, if I could choose not to be this way, I absolutely would. You know, if I was not this, most of his characters who get so obsessed, I think they would always choose, to cut off the arm, as it were, and not deal with it anymore, to drill the hole of the brain and get out of that part of life.
Huh? Is it so? I guess let's do a quick round the table. Is the ending of this film happy or sad, or is it completely ambiguous, like The Graduate or something?
I think it's a happy ending because he's finally at peace.
I used to think it was ambiguous, and now think it's definitely a happy ending.
Wow, I think it's a sad ending. Yeah, I think it's a sad ending.
Why does he have to wear that stupid hat all the time now?
Ken, I'm not saying anything about your hats. I know that you were trying trepanning in the 90s when you thought it was cool. It's all right, man.
No, I grew my hair over the scar hole. It's a metal plate now. It's fine.
For
when you get nervous, you just keep touching it and putting magnets on it.
for me,
yeah.
Thomas. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Oh, I guess because I have to question like what was lost by losing the knowledge, and also like who is he now that he
I
doesn't
guess
have the thing.
the other side of that is what was gained by having the knowledge.
For me, and it's fascinating because to your point, Thomas, about the way he looks at different religions, this type of thing is going to come up again in his work as you guys get into it. But personally, I used to feel the way you do about it, and in my early 30s, in part to deal with the neurodiversity stuff that I spoke about earlier, I got very into Buddhism, and now I see I no longer am looking for meaning in the universe, and most of the time I am trying to enjoy the pure experience of it as much as I can. So I definitely think it has that ending, but I am also obviously very biased as that's the ending I hope for myself as well. Give me that drill, buddy. Show me where to go.
What's also great, I think, about the film, like with the calculator, the girl with the calculator, is that we get the drill very early on when the chip fries and he has to undo the vacuum. And so we see the drill multiple times and even like drills the brain with it at one point in one of his visions. It's just, I guess this is going to be, definitely top 10 Aronofsky films, I think, for the three of us.
I think so too. They might even make the top 8.
There is one thing that occurred to me about the plot that I thought was fascinating. So I really like Ex Machina. And one of the things I like about Ex Machina is that you get to the ending, and the way I interpret the ending without spoiling it is that it's kind of sets up a type of AI franchise movie that we're much more familiar with when we see movies dealing with AI, much more of a Terminator-like thing where there's an AI that's unleashed on the world and is possibly going to take it over. Similarly, watching this movie, I thought, okay, so the chip, what if the number is real and it is the name of God and it has the power that the Hasids say it does? And then you take what he's talking about with his professor and the professor's strokes, and what the professor says about the chip. So if you zoom back and take the shift your focus away from Max and look at a story about this name of God number, it makes AI conscious before crashing computer chips. And it's hinted at that towards the end of the movie, the improper application of the number by the investment firm has crashed the stock market. So like there's a great big budget franchise genre pick in here about religious and financial organizations. You can get the government involved, all chasing this algorithm that when you plug it into a computer turns them self-aware and creates an AI that can control the universe. Like that's kind of what the Hasids are worried that the stock lady got there first. And I think that they're thinking like, this is it. This is the thing that controls everything. You can just imagine a very $200 million CGI epic about the fight for control of this AI. Whew.
A Michael Bay movie.
Yeah.
So we got Edward Norton as Max.
There's cars that transform. They're sentient. They're looking for the spark.
His neighbor can dump her boyfriend, and she and Max go off on a death-defying adventure with a lot of upskirts.
Oh yeah, she has to go with them, otherwise she's in trouble too because she knows too much.
Yeah.
Somehow Mark Wahlberg is Parker. We're getting a little astray. Just to tie a bow on like the acting of Sean Gullet, it doesn't take me fully out of the film, but if you compare it to things like Clerks, it's fucking amazing. This film,
yeah.
As far as
he's very sweaty and nervy. I I like his performance here.
That is one difference with Smith and Rodriguez and some of the other guys that I think you rightfully grouped with Aronofsky is unlike those first movies, which are very good. This is, I mean, I guess to your point, Thomas, this is a film. You know, this guy made a film for $100,000 that competes with any serious big budget. You know, you can put this movie up against Scorsese at the top of his game, against other serious filmmakers who have everything they need to make a great movie. He did it with nothing, you know. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think it's a great cap. Like I 100% agree.
Okay.
So that was part 1 of our Pie and the Whale for season 11.
Yeah.
First 2 episodes.
Yep. Join us for chapter 1, part 2 is what we'll call it, which will be The Whale Ate the Pie with Brendan Fraser. That will be next week's episode. And then after that, we're going to continue Aronofsky until we get to The Wrestler and Black Swan, I think is the final pairing.
This pincer movement thing is so fascinating. I've listened to some of the pods where you guys are talking about movies this way, but it is a much different way of looking at someone's career to start outside and work inward.
Watching these 2 films, we'll talk about a little more of The Whale. For Aronofsky in particular, because it's just 25 years we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that has remained so much the same about his obsessions is fascinating. Both his growth and maybe thematically, you know, like Sam Peckinpah always talked about remaking the same movie over and over again thematically. A lot of the great filmmakers do that, and he's definitely one of them.
That's definitely my favorite kind of artist. Yeah.
They keep working through the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Trying to find, me too.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Our next episode, we'll cover The Whale. We'd like to thank Weird AI for the theme song.
Hey.
Thanks, Ryan.
You're welcome.
And you can follow us on social media, including, I don't know what's around anymore, X, Parlay, not Parlor. Hey, there's that movie site for movies in production, Weight Watchers. You can follow us on our Only AC account. We've been shadow banned from Mumbler after our Dick Tracy commentary last season. But yeah, you know, most social medias.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Or we won't really see you because it's a podcast. But
I'm not talking at you.
You know what I mean.
I'm talking to you.
We'll be watching you.
I don't want to hear about you. I want to hear from you. 10 Koral, buddies. Destroy. Kill all hippies.
I don't hate it. I just don't know why you strayed from the formula.
You bastards! You don't know it, Bob. I'm an artist. And I must reflect that in my rhyme.